Growing up in the 21st century, I've had the privilege to see lots and lots of diversity among politics. In 2008, we were able to see the first black president of the United States, and in 2020, we have the privilege of being able to see the first black vice president of the United States. Also, 116 current lawmakers are non-white. But we don't take the time to learn about the people who paved the way and helped make a career for these non-white American politicians. That seems like something that we should know and learn about in our history classes, taking into account how important politics really is when determining our future. In our world today, learning about politics is a very important concept. Imagine if our government was solely made up of white Americans. It would be very hard to have them relate to different groups of people and learn of their struggles with the current laws and policies in place. As a first-time voter this year, I actually went back and looked at some very important figures who have pioneered their way into government and into government seats and paved the way for more and more diversity among politicians. Today, I will be informing you about the life and career of the first elected Hispanic senator in the United States, Octaviano Larzolo, by first looking at his early life, how he became to be a politician, and his accomplishments as a senator. Larzolo was born in 1859 into a household of a stay-at-home mom and an affluent landowner dad. But after being beaten by a teacher and kicked out of school, he moved to Arizona in 1870, where he attended private school for 5 years. When he was old enough to graduate primary school, he attended St. Michael's College when he moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. After spending a year at college in New Mexico, he dropped out and returned to Tucson, Arizona. He did have the privilege of being fluent in both English and Spanish, so during the days he taught, and at night he studied to be a lawyer. He studied law. In preparation to start a career in law, with a lawyer being what he wanted to do, he became a U.S. citizen at the age of 25 in 1884, and he ended up registering with the Texas Democratic Party, where he lived in Texas, El Paso. He lived in El Paso, Texas at the time. Larzolo's political career began in 1886 when, at the age of 27, he ended up winning the clerkship of El Paso's district court. Up until 1900, which was about a span of 14 years, he ran for smaller law positions until he ran for office of territorial delegate of the United States. However, he was unsuccessful in running for this position 3 different times. Losing the same position 3 different times would kill most people's drive to be a political figure. But Larzolo ended up finding a way to become more successful. He was a Hispanic Democrat, and running as a Hispanic Democrat, he was running as a member of Texas's state's minority party as a minority member. He then transitioned to become a member of the Republican Party, and after gaining a solid group of followers, was nominated for state governor. He ended up winning and would go on to serve for 1 term as Texas's state governor. After becoming a member and winning his re-elections to the House of Representatives in 1928, Democratic Senator Andreas A. Jones ended up passing away. Larzolo entered a Senate race to fill this seat with a man named Bronson M. Cutting, who had been initially appointed the seat, but Larzolo did have a right to run. Larzolo promised the American people that he would work in Washington, D.C., to keep the respect of the Spanish-American people in America. He ended up winning 56% of the vote, becoming the first Hispanic senator that our country had seen up to that point. After winning senator, Larzolo was appointed to the Agriculture and Forestry, Public Lands and Surveys, and Territories and Insular Possessions Committees. Shortly after being voted into office, he ended up coming down with a case of the flu, which was a reason that he ended up missing out on some of the votes during the time of him running for the position. He returned home over the winter recess to Texas to rest and recover before coming back for the new year. He came back with a bang in 1929, introducing S.5374, which, in quote, it was to provide for a military and industrial school for boys and girls in the state of New Mexico, which is where he attended college. Sadly, this would be his only legislative action as a senator, as he came down with another very aggressive version of the flu. He later returned home that month to Texas, and it ended up being for good. On behalf of Larzolo, Senator Otis F. Glenn introduced S 5682, which settled outstanding claims with Mexico, which was a big issue at the time. And sadly, in March of 1929, Larzolo suffered a stroke while his term was ending, and as he tried to recover with his family in Texas. He had to live with the effects of this stroke for about a year, as he passed away in April of 1930. Larzolo didn't accomplish much while being a senator, but everything else he accomplished up until that point was monumental for Spanish Americans. They had never had representation in government like Larzolo represented them, let alone ever had representation, and he helped pave the way for more Spanish Americans to run for government seats, such as Bob Menendez, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and Catherine Cortez Masto, who currently serve. It is hard to imagine that some people don't look up and educate themselves about the history that isn't taught in school. You know, there might be a snippet or like a small excerpt in a history textbook or something like that about this topic, but you don't get the chapters, you don't get the whole units, the sections about the information that you need to be fully educated about the people who have diversely progressed our country in such a powerful and impactful way. Thank you.